ich will mir eigentlich nicht erzählen.
Live from the hippest spot online, you've arrived at the Pop Culture Juke Joint, the only weekly podcast you'll need for intelligent showbiz chats. Located just up the street from the Peach Pit and down that dark, damp alley behind Fonzie's garage, you'll find former newsman and current hard-boiled crime writer Anthony Venutolo, chatting with guests about everything from old school classics to new school staples. So head up to the bar, grab a drink, and settle in here at the Pop Culture Juke Joint. Now, your host, Anthony Venutolo.
Welcome to episode 4 of the Pop Culture Juke Joint. We're happy to have you tonight. This week, once again, we're welcoming back Jack Lugo, James Bond expert and pop culture extraordinaire. We'll be talking about a slew of things, including the season premiere of Sherlock, the celebrity deaths that affected us most, our pop culture picks for best and worst of the year, and what we're looking forward to for 2017. So sit back, relax, pour a drink, enter the Juke Joint. Okay, so we're going to talk a little Sherlock tonight, huh?
Yes, we are. The series 4 opener just ended, and it did not disappoint. As you know, Sherlock is a British BBC series, and because of the high profiles of the stars, Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman, it's very hard for them to sort of get the series rolling. They have their long hiatuses in between seasons. So last year they actually did a one-off Christmas special, which some of the fans were not happy with, but I liked it. I mean, it took place. It sounds kind of like it's usually a lame thing to have like an entire episode take place in a dream, and obviously it's a plot device that people get tired of. But the way they did it was actually very clever, and it sort of leads into where we start off in this season opener. Basically. Sherlock comes back. The threat of Moriarty seems to have returned, but he's sort of he's convinced that Moriarty's dead, but that this is sort of like a posthumous thing that Moriarty set into motion to sort of have a game with Sherlock. But then we move on to other cases because of the way the last season ended. He killed the main villain of the last season in front of the authorities without really any probable cause. So they were going to, as sort of a punishment, instead of sending him to prison, they were going to send him on this dangerous mission. But when the threat of Moriarty came back, then they brought Sherlock back, and they realized, well, we might need Sherlock from on occasion because these impossible cases start occurring. This what I love about this series is that they take a lot of the material from the original Arthur Conan Doyle stories, and they sort of mold it to fit their own series. They add their own sort of plot twists to keep it modern and stuff, but they use as much of the source material as possible in a way that sort of makes sense for today. So it was a great episode. This episode was based on a Doyle story called the Six Napoleons, and they changed it to the Sixth Thatchers, and they sort of use that as a starting point, and then it goes into another place involving Watson's wife, and now they have a child, and the dynamic between Sherlock and Watson. It's always fascinating, the way they have that dynamic, but basically they did a really good job. I don't want to get too much into plot because obviously I can give away the whole thing, but I enjoyed it.
So, how many episodes are we going to expect from this season, I guess?
Yeah, it's 3 episodes. It's always been 3 episodes every season.
What is it with the Brits that they only give you like 3 episodes every fucking TV season? What's going on with that?
I mean, some other series are longer, but with Sherlock, that's the way they've always done it.
Are you a fan of Sherlock on the whole, or is it just this incarnation of Sherlock that you like?
I've always been a fan. There are incarnations that I like more than others. I mean, I love the Rathbone classic series, and the Jeremy Brett one was great as well. I'm not a big fan of Elementary. I've only watched a few episodes of that one, but this is sort of my favorite of the more recent incarnations. I know the Guy Ritchie movies that they've done, they're okay as well. I don't have a problem with them, but I actually prefer this incarnation of all of them.
Do you like? As far as the Guy Ritchie movies are concerned, do you have a problem with the Guy Ritchie direction, or do you have a problem with the Robert Downey portrayal of Holmes?
I think it's more the direction,
Right.
but I don't have like they're still enjoyable. They're entertaining, but I think with this series, they really go out of their way to sort of pay tribute to the source material and then do it in a way that's original and clever and very fascinating. Whereas with the Guy Ritchie, he sort of makes it his own, which is obviously he's entitled to do that. But it's if you're a fan of the source material, it's easier to become more of a fan of this show.
Is there any indication how long Cumberbatch is going to keep doing these, or is he done after this, or how's that going to work?
There've been some conflicting interviews. I mean, early, like before they started shooting this season, he was saying something like he can do this indefinitely. He can, like we would see him age as Sherlock indefinitely. But more recently, he's been saying that this is a season that it's unlikely that they're going to continue from this point after the 3 episodes, at least for the foreseeable future. Obviously, they can plan something, they can get something started at a future date, but he didn't completely close it off. But he sounds like this when this series ends, that it would be sort of a final moment. I mean, and actually the title that was revealed for the 3rd episode, which will air in 2 weeks, is The Final Problem. And I thought that they already did that with the season 2 season finale with the confrontation with Moriarty. The Final Problem, for anyone who doesn't know, is the short story that Doyle wrote about the confrontation between Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty, and obviously they both fall over the Rockenbach fall. Well, they appear to have fallen over the Rockenbach Falls, and Doyle effectively he killed off Sherlock Holmes in that story, and then years later he brought him back because of demand, from the audience. But his original intention was to kill off Sherlock Holmes, and then he figured, then he wrote after that he wrote Hound of the Baskervilles, sort of taking place before that story, and there was an increasing demand once that novel was successful to bring Sherlock Holmes back. So then he started writing new stories with Sherlock Holmes, and obviously the first one he wrote after explained that Sherlock Holmes survived. And then with this show, they had the episode The Rockenbach Falls, which was the season 2 finale, and that's where Sherlock Holmes faked his death, and Watson was convinced that Sherlock Holmes was dead for the longest time, and then obviously season 3 opened and explained what happened there. So the fact that the title of this season 4 finale is The Final Problem is very intriguing to me.
All right, so you're in though for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally in. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll check back in like 3 weeks or 2 weeks to see what the general prognosis is from you.
Yeah, episode 2 is next week, and then the finale would be the week after.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna move on because we got a lot to get to tonight.
Yes.
I mean, when I say a lot, I mean we've got a ton. We're basically going to be talking about the year in pop culture. 2016 was a rough year. In terms of celebrity deaths, it was just probably one of the most brutal years I've seen in a long time. And believe me, I've covered celebrity deaths at, the newspaper and the website I used to work at. So, I've seen years like this come and go, but this was, my God, like what a brutal year. We're going to talk a little bit about, some of the celebrity deaths that affected you the most, and then I'll give you my list. But I'd love to hear, your the top 5 celebrity deaths that really, hit you the hardest.
Okay. Yeah, I'll start from the bottom. Gene Wilder, I think, was the I would be my number 5. He was older, obviously. With older celebrities, you kind of have the expectation that they're not going to live forever. But at the same time, it sort of took me by surprise. My son just started getting into Willy Wonka like a couple of years ago, and he every now and then he wants to see that movie. And then of course I'm a huge fan of Young Frankenstein and the work he did with Mel Brooks. Sure. The first Producers movie, which is still I think underrated. Most people refer to the musical, but the original movie was still is an excellent movie too. So yeah, he was just a really great comic performer, and he's one of those guys that if you see occasionally comedians sort of go over the top, and sometimes you kind of roll your eyes, but with him you never did that. He was always convincing. He always drew you in.
Sure. All right. Let's keep it going. What about your number 4?
Number 4 would be Leonard Cohen. I'm a huge fan. I like both him and Dylan are sort of idols to me. I just love his poetry of his lyrics, and great musician. And like the first song I learned how to finger pick on guitar was Suzanne, and of course we all know the song Hallelujah. That's become a staple. Sure. But he's written hundreds of other songs that are just absolutely brilliant too.
Okay. What about your number 3?
Number 3 would be George Michael, which happened recently. I mean, I was literally having Christmas dinner with my family, and the news broke, and I was just, totally stunned. My uncle's husband actually met George Michael a few times. He's a huge fan, and we've actually talked about George Michael on occasion. And it was just, I'm not a fan of all the music he's ever done, but his music has been a staple of our youths. I mean,
sure.
Yours too, from the postings I've seen from you. I mean, there's songs that are just iconic.
Without a doubt. All right, number 2. What do you say?
Number 2 would be Carrie Fisher. I think that sort of took all of us by surprise. She was just brilliant. I mean, there's a lot that people don't know. Other than being in Star Wars, she was a great performer, a great writer. That she did that HBO special based on her book, the One Woman Show, Wishful Drinking, which is they're re-airing today. And a lot of people don't know that she was also a script doctor. She worked on Hook and The Wedding Singer and a few other movies. So she was just a brilliant person, and she called attention to mental illness and feminism in a way that I think needed to be done.
She's really going to be lost. I mean, she really will be missed terribly. Okay, your number 1. I hate to say that you're number 1, but the celebrity death that devastated you the most.
Yeah, David Bowie. I was not expecting that. I mean, there are a few aging rock stars where, like, when they come out with a new album, you just sort of, you get disinterested. But with him, it's like every new piece of music he put out, I was always, fascinated, and I was always drawn to his music. That was a brutal loss for me.
Yeah, it seemed to be, he raised the bar with every album. I mean, even if you didn't like it, that he was doing something interesting that you could respect.
Exactly. Like I said, there are a few albums that maybe I didn't connect to, but I always respected everything that he did. Sure. And, the last couple of albums he released were actually really good.
Sure. As far as my list is concerned, it's a little bit similar to yours, but I'll briefly go through them. The 5th celebrity death that really kind of got me this year was Gary Shandling, and if for the only reason that, without Gary Shandling, he gave us the idea that we can bridge reality into comedy, meaning, the comedian playing himself. When I think of It's Gary Shandling show and Larry Sanders show, I immediately think of Curb Your Enthusiasm. It just kind of like bridged the gap, right? My number 4 was Gary Marshall.
Oh, okay, yeah, definitely.
Growing up, as a child of the 70s and watching TV, it seemed like it was either a Gary Marshall show or a Norman Lear show. And while the Norman Lear shows might have been a little too intelligent for me, like All in the Family and satirical, and the Gary Marshall shows, especially Happy Days, and Laverne and Shirley, just kind of, they kicked me in the gut because, I was watching, the Fonz every week. And that was it. I'm sure I'm a little bit older than you, but there wasn't a third grader around in 1977 and 76 that didn't want to be the Fonz. So, yeah, for me, it was Gary Marshall at number 4. Number 3 was a guy that had been sick a long, long time. But still, when he passed, it was still very, 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 very sad. And that would be Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, definitely.
And certainly he wasn't a celebrity. He was a sportsman, but and probably in my eyes the world's best boxer, at least that I've seen. So when he died, it was expected. Yes, he'd been ill a while, but wow, I mean, when he died, the sporting world definitely felt a void. My number 2, Jack, is your number 2, Carrie Fisher. I was in New York when that happened, and it literally stopped me in my tracks. I don't know if you had told me or if I saw it on Facebook or whatever, but I was like, no way. And when I heard,
out of nowhere.
It came out of nowhere, and when I heard she was unresponsive, I knew that was a bad sign. They used the same words for Michael Jackson, and I actually wrote about that when it happened. And I just got these flashbacks of, Carrie Fisher's going to die, and I don't know why I kept thinking that, but, you didn't hear about her for a couple of days, and then maybe you thought she was out of the woods. You're like, hey, maybe she's pulling through, but no, sadly she didn't. And, the entertainment world was devastated, and rightly so. My number 1 was your number 3, and that would be George Michael.
Okay.
I could have easily put Prince at number 1 or number 2, number 3, number 4, but George Michael really was part of the soundtrack of my teenage years and my college years and post college. I mean, those albums that he put out literally were on my cassette player and my CD player and the radio in my car all those years, and I went back to listen to a few of them, after he died, and you know what? They held up for me. They really held up. They really do. They were great pop songs that, certainly we've seen other pop songs come down the pike, but boy, this guy had a voice and he had a swagger, and they were just great, fun songs. And I still maintain the guy was a hell of a jazz singer. I can make a tape or a mixtape, or I say mixtape, but like, a playlist easily of George Michael jazz songs that, would probably stun you. So yeah, really, really sad about that. And, hopefully, Jack, 2017 will be a little kinder to the world of celebrity deaths,
Let's hope.
Let's hope. Let's talk a little bit about movies. I want to hear your top 5 favorite movies. Should we do 5 and 5, my 5 and your 5, or do you want to do like all your 5 and then my 5? What do you want to do it? How do you want to do it?
We could do my 5 and then your 5.
Okay, good. Go for it.
Okay, so top favorite films to 2016. Number 5 would be for me Cafe Society. It's probably not going to make anyone else's list, but I'm a huge Woody Allen fan,
Mm-hmm.
and it's certainly not as good as Midnight in Paris, which I think it was his last masterpiece. But for me, it's definitely up there after the couple of the other disappointing recent films. So I enjoyed it.
Sure.
Number 4 would be X-Men Apocalypse. I thought Bryan Singer has been doing a great job with
Mm-hmm.
the X-Men franchise, and I'm looking forward to what they do next. And Michael Fassbender, that entire cast, it's just spot on
Mm-hmm.
what they're doing with that franchise. Number 3, Sully. Tom Hanks, Clint Eastwood, I think was the perfect director to direct that story. I mean, I can't imagine anyone else directing it, and I
Mm-hmm.
can't imagine anyone else in the role other than Tom Hanks. I mean,
Sure.
it's just a perfect combination of great direction, great performance for those two.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely it's high on my list. Number 2, Star Trek Beyond. I'm a huge Star Trek fan. Going back to my youth and all
Mm-hmm.
that. So I like what they're doing with this recent incarnation. This film I think was an improvement over the second film that they
Mm-hmm.
that they did. It got back to sort of like what Star Trek was originally supposed to be about, and I thought it really paid tribute to the spirit of the original series. And number 1, of course, I can't imagine anyone else's number 1. I think your number 1 be the same. Star Wars Rogue One, of course.
We shall see, Jack.
Yeah.
All right, so I agree with a lot of those. Those were really good picks. Let's see. My top 5 films. The fifth one is a little unconventional. It was a documentary called Author, the J.T. Leroy Story. It was directed by the same guy that directed The Devil and Daniel Johnson. And it was a documentary about this wonderkind, J.T. Leroy, who took the literary world by storm in the 90s. Only thing, Jack, this person did not exist. It was a
Wow.
it was a fictitious personality that literally grabbed the entertainment and pop culture world by the balls, and it's a fascinating look into how we view celebrity and how a celebrity can just crop up out of nowhere. I mean, you had people like Winona Ryder and Tom Waits singing this kid's praises when it was really the concoction of middle-aged woman who was kind of a little depressed, and these were her fantasies. These were the creations of J.T. Leroy were her creations. Really good movie. I think you should check it out. I think you'd like it a lot. Number 4 was The Nice Guys, Shane Black's return.
Okay, I didn't see that one. I definitely have to check that one out.
Jack, I think you would love it. I mean, literally, this thing looked like it was shot in 1978. Ryan Gosling, really, to me, everyone's talking about his performance in La La Land, but Ryan Gosling is really a funny actor. He's got great comic timing in this. And of course, Russell Crowe is Russell Crowe. I really think you should watch this. Number 3 is Hell or High Water, and I think I spoke to you about this. If you're into gritty, Western noirs, modern Western noirs, this is your movie. I think we're going to save this movie to discuss in depth a little bit later, in the future weeks. So hopefully you can get your hands on it, and then we could discuss that at length.
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, I remember when you told me about it. I definitely want to check that one out.
It's right up your alley. Number 2, Jack, is Civil War. Okay.
Okay.
I mean, it's if only Disney, okay, and Marvel can put all of those heroes on the screen and make it not only entertaining but compelling at the same time. And they're doing everything that they're doing everything right that DC is
The,
absolutely just doing wrong.
yeah, absolutely. I have to totally agree with you there.
Without a doubt. So if you didn't check it out, it's on Netflix now. Civil War is my number 2. My number 1, Jack, shouldn't come as a shock to anyone or you, and that would be Rogue One. Jack, what could I say? We spoke about this about a week and a half ago, or 2 weeks ago. They hit it out of the park. All those reshoots and bad press or whatever. You know what? It all worked, Jack.
It all worked. I'm intrigued to see what the other endings were that they had planned. What other cuts of the film. I mean, it would be great if they. I don't know if they'll include everything, but I mean, there were a significant number of reshoots on that, and I just have to wonder, what the creative. Direction, what creative directions they were considering, but what they ended up with was phenomenal.
It was absolutely, and here's the thing, the more they were going out of their way to say, no, this isn't a saga film, when you watch it and when you're done, you're like, no, this is a saga film. This totally is a saga film. So, for my money, that is the movie of late, as far as the Star Wars universe is concerned, to watch. First and foremost, hands down, they hit it out of the park. So we are in agreement. Let's talk a little bit about 2016 television. I want to hear your top 5 television shows of the year.
Okay, number 5, American Crime Story: The People versus O.J. Simpson. That was a miniseries I was not expecting to like at all, and it just drew me in. The performances, Sterling K. Brown, Laura Paulson, all of them, John Travolta, they all did a phenomenal job, and they really made that story come alive. I mean, I just can't sing its praises enough. I don't know if you feel the same way about it.
I do. I think that that miniseries probably shocked everyone about how compelling they made a story that we thought we already knew.
Exactly. Yeah.
What can I say?
I thought there was. I thought I knew everything there is to know about it, and it just, every episode, the way they focused on, especially Sarah Paulson, what. Her performance was just really amazing.
And you know what? Top-notch performances by everybody. And what does it say when everyone is out acting John Travolta? Okay?
Yeah.
Let's just say that.
Exactly. So number 4 for me, This Is Us. I know it's the crying melodramatic show, but I thought they've done an amazing job with the scripts. Great performances as well. I'm intrigued to find out where they're going to go. The way the mid-season finale ended. Toby, the boyfriend, had a heart attack, and we don't know exactly if he's going to survive. But the way, I mean, even early on in the earlier episodes, the way they sort of drew us in by sort of, when they first promoted the show, it looked like it was these disparate characters, from that had these separate stories, and then you found out that they were all one family, and they all, had this connection, it just drew us in from there. And I thought the way they've done it was very clever. Has been very clever. Number 3, another OJ series, OJ Made in America. That came out after the American Crime Story miniseries, and I thought I was OJ'd out, and
I agree.
I was just drawn in. It was incredibly long. It was like 8 hours or something, some ridiculous amount of time, but every second of it was incredibly worth it.
I think the 4th and 5th installments of that documentary series were probably one of the best things I've seen of late, especially the last part of that, because you got to know things about O.J. Simpson post trial that I was just like, I couldn't believe. Like, he kind of like spiraled into this debauchery of Las Vegas, and really wild stuff, man.
if you had any doubt as to whether or not OJ was a seedy kind of like not much of a pleasant person, this series sort of cemented that. I mean, obviously, regardless of the fact of whether he's innocent or guilty, it's certainly a story that I think is incredibly relevant.
But at the heart of it, this guy remained charismatic through it all. And that was the interesting part of it, was that how likable he appeared to everyone that kind of was in his inner circle. It was just a weird documentary. But I don't want to steal your thunder on this. What is your number 2?
Number 2, Westworld, which we've covered. That was our first podcast, and the series drew me in from the very beginning. I sort of caught on to it like a little late, like the 3 or 4 episodes in, and then I binged, and then I watched it from week to week, and it's just incredibly original, and the kinds of questions that they're asking us to sort of think about are just very intriguing, interesting sci-fi origins. It's just an incredibly brilliant show.
Okay, what's Jack's favorite TV property of the year?
Should come as no surprise, Stranger Things. That one came out of nowhere. All of a sudden, there were people talking about it, and Netflix sort of did not promote it at all when they first released it. And then we started watching, and all these sort of homages to 80s and Stephen King and those B horror movies that we grew up with, and Steven Spielberg. They sort of figured out a way to sort of mesh all those cultural influences together to come up with this incredible series and bring us these incredible characters, and the kids were phenomenal actors in it. So definitely I'm looking forward to what they do in season 2. I
agree completely. All right, well, I'll give you my 5. Number 5 for me is Veep, the HBO comedy. Every week they raise the bar and they make me laugh harder and harder. It's kind of in the vein of The Office, and I'm sure you've seen episodes of The Office, but Julia Louis-Dreyfus is a national treasure, and let me just say, I love this show so much that it actually puts me in a better mood when I'm kind of cranky. So I really do. So if you've never seen it, go back and watch it. It is absolutely hilarious. And I believe realistic in its comedy. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a ridiculous comedy. I really do believe that this is the kind of stuff that can go on behind closed doors in Washington. So, and, it's great to see Julia Louis-Dreyfus having a potty mouth. It is absolutely hilarious. My number 4 is Westworld. Okay. And let me just say that, I agree with you, and I won't go into too much detail because, I think you hit all the bases that this thing, it was also plagued with rumors of, trouble on the set and reshoots and, kind of like Rogue One. But, wow, man, again, this thing was almost perfect. It captivated us every week. It kept us asking questions. We didn't know where it was going. And I don't like being confused, Jack. I didn't mind it in this case. I did not mind it in this case. My number 3, and I hate to say it, this is yet again another HBO property, but HBO knows what they're doing, and they've proven this time and time again. And I'm glad to see that they're well represented on this list. The Night Of, and I know you're planning to watch this.
Yeah, I missed it. I missed out on it. I definitely want to watch it soon, though.
Well, I will say this, Jack. When I watched it, I guess over the summer when it aired, this probably for me was the best first hour of television I've watched in the past few years. This thing kept me riveted. It is a great New York story. It is filled with New York-esque characters. What do I mean by that? I mean that, it looks like they plucked people right off the street and put them into the show, Jack. Let me tell you, everyone from the cops to the clerks to the people working on the hot dog vendors on these guys look so authentic. John Turturro himself is amazing. I do want to hear what you think about it once you start watching. I won't waste. No spoilers. I mean, I hope you're excited to watch this.
I am. I mean, the first I heard about it was when James Gandolfini died. That was the project he was working on, and John Turturro stepped in, and they completed the series. But yeah, I'm looking forward to checking it out.
Good. My number 2 is a show I know you don't watch, but is probably one of my favorite shows on the air. They hit it out of the park consistently. It is AMC's *Halt and Catch Fire*. For me, it is the perfect heir to the Mad Men throne. It takes us behind the scenes in the 1980s at the dawn of the computer age. So swap advertising for Silicon Valley, and this is basically what you get. If that's not your bag, I will say that in the second season, the show pivoted slightly to concentrate on the female characters in the show, and that's when it got really interesting. So it is one of the most engrossing shows. And from what I read, it's popping up on all these top 10 lists. So I'm glad to see that other people or other critics are enjoying it, and the next season will be its last. They did announce that. So I think they're taking us through the entire dawn of the personal computer into the online revolution, and I think maybe to the beginning of social networks. So because they do jump forward every season slightly.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's one I want to check out. That's one I want to check out too. It's on Netflix, I believe.
It is on Netflix.
The earlier seasons, yeah.
It is on Netflix. Get through the first season. They went through some growing pains, but boy, once they hit that second season, it just takes off like a rocket. And there's some familiar faces in there too. So some familiar Boardwalk Empire faces. I will say that, and I won't say any more.
Okay.
My number 1 is kind of like their bookends. I grouped O.J. Made in America and American Crime Story, The People versus O.J. Simpson, together. I mean, I think they're just companion pieces. One was told with a very entertaining flair, obviously the scripted property, and then the documentary, the ESPN documentary, just took you behind the scenes of really O.J. Simpson's life. They didn't. They took their time, and boy, wow! Like Jesus.
Yeah, that it was incredible. I for that time that it was airing, that was all I can. Yeah, I was looking forward to watching.
I agree.
While those two series were on.
I will say this. ESPN and ABC didn't make it easy to watch the show, because I don't know if you remember, but the first episode premiered on ABC, and then it jumped to ESPN, and then ESPN, they've got games is it going to be preempted? My DVR gets all screwed up. It was hard to watch this thing, dude. I think I had to catch the bulk of it on
I think
demand.
it was even on ESPN too. It might not have even been on ESPN proper, or maybe I'm wrong about that.
Yeah, the fact that we don't even know this, Jack. I mean, it's just it says something. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what you're looking forward to for 2017.
Okay, so there are going to be shows and films. So I kind of separated.
Yeah, let's start off with TV.
Okay, so for TV, number 5, I'm looking forward to Return of the Blacklist. I'm not sure if it's I don't think it's a show you follow, but James Spader is amazing in it. We just found out, well, we've kind of known all along that his character is Elizabeth's father, but the way they kind of unfolded it, it took a long time, but now we're finally going to deal with that, hopefully in the new season. So it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic between those two characters changes, and also the his former employee who he shot for a semi betrayal, because like she did it for his own good, but he killed her anyway because he saw it as a betrayal. She's actually still alive, and the specter of her, she's going to come back. So I'm looking forward to what happens there.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4, as I mentioned before, I'm a huge Star Trek fan, so I'm looking forward to what CBS is going to do. I'm sort of bummed out that they're going to, just air the pilot on CBS, and then the rest of the series is going to go to All Access. But I'm I'll watch the pilot, and I'm sure I'll like it. So I'll probably end up having to order CBS All Access just to see that.
Another bill, Jack. Another bill in your life. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's not fair at all. But I'll see. I mean, lately, the Brian Fuller was fired from it, so he did a great deal developing the show. I think he wrote the pilot, but I think they're going to take it in another direction. So I don't know what there's very little known as to what they're going to do, but I'm still interested.
Is this going to be the show with Scott Bakula?
No. That show aired. That was Enterprise.
Oh my God, that came and went. Okay,
yeah, that came and
forget
went.
that.
That was the last Star Trek televised series, and they didn't even call it Star Trek to begin with. They just called it Enterprise, and then they figured out that fans kind of like seeing the brand Star Trek attached to the series, so they changed it to Star Trek Enterprise midway. But yeah, that series is over.
I guess it wasn't high on your list then, huh?
Well, it ended years ago. I mean,
Jesus Christ, really?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Oh well.
That was before the J.J. Abrams reboot of the 2009.
Okay. All right.
So.
What's your number 3?
Number 3, I'm looking forward to the return of Curb Your Enthusiasm. Larry David's back on board. For a while, he was sort of procrastinating or sort of toying with the idea of whether to bring the show back or not. But finally, they just started filming the new season, and I'm not sure when it's going to premiere, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm a huge fan of that show. Number 2 is obviously I mentioned before Stranger Things season 2. I got to find out what they're going to do with it, and I'm intrigued as to what where it's going to go, what influences they're going to bring in. I know they're introducing new characters, and then we also have to find out what's going on. Obviously the last episode ended in a way that you can see where it might go, but it'll be interesting to see what they do.
Sure.
And then number 1 is Sherlock. Obviously this is it's right out of the gate in 2017. We get a new season of Sherlock, and it's only 3 episodes, but boy, I'm gonna really savor it.
Okay, all right, that's a good list. My list is a little bit different. My number 5 for next year on TV is The Young Pope on HBO. I don't know if you've seen any of the trailers for this, but wow, this thing looks like it could be really cool.
Yeah, I've seen the trailers. It looks really exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, my number 4, Homeland. Now, let me explain why I put this at number 4. I don't particularly think Homeland is a great show, but every year I say to myself, maybe this year will be the year that Homeland really redeems itself, because I really do think that the show has a lot of promise. It has great moments, okay? Like I said, I don't think it's a great show, but the show has moments every season. And Claire Danes is, she's a tour de force. And again, I think they're moving the show this year to New York, from what I've seen. So that should be interesting, because usually, they've been abroad like last season, the year before. My number 3 is The Leftovers. Another HBO drama, will be entering its last season. It's a spectacular, how else can I say? It's a mind fuck, but not in the same way that Westworld is. It's about this rapture-like event where, a tenth of the world's population or something like that has just kind of vanished. and we're seeing these events through the eyes of, Justin Theroux and his family, and how it's affected him and the people around him, and the weird little cults that have sprung up. It's really, it feels, if you're the kind of person that likes a literary feel to their dramas, this is it. And it's amazing. And hopefully, if you haven't watched it, I hope you do. I do predict it would suck you in, just like Westworld did. My number two is the next season of American Crime Story. And I say that because I hear that they're taking us to New Orleans and Hurricane Sandy. Not Hurricane Sandy.
Katrina.
Hurricane Katrina. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think, we saw we saw a similar backdrop on Treme on HBO. And it was a great backdrop for television drama, because there's so many things that you can speak about. Everything from the people, in the parishes, to the French Quarter, to the politicians, to the cops. I really do think that this is going to be a pretty good show, or a pretty good entrant in this serialized drama. My number one is Curb Your Enthusiasm. Yes, I agree. The return of Larry David got lots of people excited, and kind of like with the void of Louis not there anymore, or at least not there for the immediate future. It is great to have, the master back doing what he does best. And it's going to be really interesting because it's been a while since we've seen him. I can't recall exactly what year we last saw him, but
it's been a few years. I mean, I kind of I have to watch the last few episodes just to remember how it ended, because I know I watched them, but it's been so long that
it really does feel like a long time ago, Jack. I want to say like maybe 7 years, 8 years. I don't know. It feels really long.
Yeah.
But it will be interesting to see. The world's changed a lot since we've last seen Larry, and and certainly entertainment has changed, social media and things like that. So it's going to be interesting to see all of that kind of like weaved in to this series. Let's talk briefly about the movies that you're looking forward to.
Okay, movies I'm looking forward to. I made a little list. Number 5, Kingsman: The Golden Circle. I don't know if you watched the first Kingsman movie, but I really enjoyed it. Matthew Vaughn directed it, and he's kind of been mentioned as a potential Bond director in the past, but I guess they didn't go with him. So this was his way of kind of doing a Bondian inspired film. It's a whole spy genre, and I'm a huge Bond fan. So he takes a more fantastical approach to Bond, to this film franchise.
Sure.
It's not Bond. And it was just great. Colin Firth plays mentor to this character named Eggsy, and and Samuel L. Jackson was the villain in the first film, and he did a phenomenal job. He doesn't play the kind of villain you think Samuel L. Jackson might play. He's kind of a little bit effeminate, and he has a lisp, and he's afraid of blood. So it's totally kind of, it's not even your typical Samuel L. Jackson performance. But this sequel should be interesting. Spoiler alert: they did kill Colin Firth in the first film, but they are bringing him back for this film, so it'll be interesting to see how they're going to do that.
How they use it, right.
Yeah, and then it's gonna be really cool. So I'm looking forward to that.
Okay.
Number 4, Logan, the Wolverine film that's coming up. Hugh Jackman apparently accepted a lower pay rate just so that they can get this give this an R-rated film rather than kind of force it to be a PG-13 film, which is a good sign. I mean, creatively, I think sometimes when you see a PG-13 film, especially one that you want a little bit of a bite to it, you don't, if it's a PG-13 film that it might be a little tame. So with an R rating, I think hopefully it means that they haven't shied away from anything.
Sure.
So I'm looking forward to that. Number three, it's going to be there's a new adaptation of Stephen King's It, which was the novel. They previously Tim Curry originally played the role in 1990 for the miniseries, but in this adaptation, Bill Skarsgård is playing. He's the son of Stellan Skarsgård. He's going to be playing Pennywise the Clown, and then Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things. He's going to be Richie Tozier, one of the kids. So that's just going to be great. I know they moved the timeline a little bit. It's not going to take place in the 50s. Instead, it's going to take place in the 80s. And then for the childhood version of the characters, and then obviously the second film will focus on the adults, and then that would be present day. So I'm intrigued as to what they're going to do with it. And with the previous adaptation, I feel like there was so much in the book that they left out. So I'm really interested to see where it's going to go.
Okay. Number two.
Number two, Blade Runner 2049. I mean, the trailer just came out recently. It looked amazing.
Very cool.
I'm totally stoked to see that. And number one, come as no surprise, Star Wars Episode 8. I don't think there's anyone who's not looking forward to seeing that. It will hopefully get some answers as to Rey's origins and see where the story is going to go with Kylo Ren, and what his deal is, and the Supreme Leader Snoke, and where it's going to where they're going to take that. So I'm obviously very interested to see where it's going to go.
I agree completely. All right, real quick, I'll give you my top five films that I'm most stoked for. Number 5 would be War for the Planet of the Apes. I have long been a Planet of the Apes fan. Grew up watching those original films on the 4:30 movie growing up. Even that crappy Tim Burton mess I dove into completely.
Wasn't that disappointing?
It was awful. It was awful. But when it came out, let me tell you something. I was like a kid in a candy store. Like I couldn't wait for it. But I do think that this latest franchise, they're doing some interesting things, and I think sure it can look a little CGI'd out, but I think the motion capture with Andy Serkis has been absolutely incredible. They've brought to life Caesar on the screen, and I do hear that we're going to see Nova in this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I do. That's what I hear. So I'm kind of stoked for that. My number 4 is John Wick 2. John Wick 2.
I admit I didn't watch John Wick 1. So, tell me a little bit about it.
Oh, John Wick was kind of like a really, it's kind of like came out of nowhere. Keanu Reeves plays a hitman who, comes out of retirement after the death of his wife and his dog, and he just kicks all sorts of ass. It's ultra violent, it's ultra badass, and they create this subculture of hitmen in this movie, where there's a hotel just for hitmen, and it's kind of cool to see like this weird subculture of men doing this. It's very, to me, it felt very comic book like, but ultra violent. And Keanu Reeves, I've always said, given the right role, he can make that, stupefied look on his face work for him. And in John Wick, he really does make it work. He really does make it work. I mean, it's a badass movie. John Leguizamo's in it, and a lot of familiar faces. Please watch it. It's real short. I don't know, it's like maybe like 99 minutes or something. My number 3 is Spider-Man: Homecoming. I am looking forward to this. I'm not the biggest Spider-Man fan, but I do believe that this kid Tom Holland is the real deal when it comes to Peter Parker. And the fact that Marvel and Disney kind of have control of the character now, I do believe you're gonna start seeing Spider-Man the way he was meant to be played and seen on the big screen. And the little we saw of him in Civil War, and the trailer that just came out, it has a very, very high school feel to it. And I do believe, I mean, Tobey Maguire, I didn't buy him as a high school student. And even what's his name, Andrew Garfield. I didn't buy him as Peter Parker. This kid looks like a kid. He looks like he's 15 years old, and I really do think it's going to work. So fingers crossed it does. My number 2, I will admit, makes me a little nervous. It is Justice League.
Okay.
Yeah. I was very let down by Batman versus Superman. Even though here. I'm very let down, even though I do believe that Ben Affleck really gave us a good Batman, and a really noble effort. The movie itself was a mess. I am hoping that Justice League redeems that film. The fact that Zack Snyder is also directing this makes me nervous.
It makes me nervous too.
I'm not buying into that visionary bullshit anymore. I think the guy is just putting everything into the goddamn blender, putting it on, and hoping that something that Oliver Stone would make plops out of it. So I got my fingers crossed because I do love these characters. It's going to be interesting to see. And, I do like what I see with Wonder Woman. The trailer for Wonder Woman looked really good. And I was going to put this on my list, but, I do have Justice League on there instead. My number 1, like you, Jack, is Episode 8.
Yeah.
I do believe, Jack, that this is going to be the film that, we were all excited for The Force Awakens. We were kind of jazzed. Some people were a little disappointed by it because it was too much of a rehash. I do think that this film is going to take us into another direction. We're going to see, like you said, we're going to find out more about Rey's origins. There's going to be a lot more Luke in this film, I hope. There's going to be some badass Jedi action, and hopefully...
And Carrie Fisher's final performance.
Oh, man, and Carrie Fisher's final performance. Yeah, I do think this is going to be... Jack, I can't wait for the trailer, man. I thought the trailer was going to be attached to Rogue One.
I think they wanted to do that, but I guess it's too early. Because, I heard the same rumors, too, that they were thinking about doing a teaser trailer. Yeah, even if you just saw like 5 seconds of footage, it would have been nice, but I guess not. We don't even know what it's going to be called. I mean...
that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
You got a good point. Do you, real quick, and I know we didn't talk about putting any pop culture disappointments or misfires. I don't know if you have any ready. Is there anything that comes to mind?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, you mentioned Batman versus Superman, and also Suicide Squad was a bit of a disappointment. Yeah, I mean, we were all looking for, like, after being disappointed by Batman versus Superman, I think we all thought, well, Suicide Squad is going to kind of,
right. Redeem the universe.
Redeem it, and it didn't. At least not for me. Jared Leto was okay, and then of course there's the whole controversy with a lot of his scenes ending up in the cutting room floor, which is a shame. But the film itself was, it was just so disappointing. I just couldn't get into it.
Yeah. Real quick, I'll add to that. I watched Jason Bourne the other night, and it was kind of cool seeing Matt Damon back kicking ass, but the movie went nowhere. It was more of the same, filled with a lot of implausible bullcrap. That I think if they had never made this film, the Bourne franchise would have been just fine. Big disappointment for me. Real quick, another disappointment. Not artistically disappointment, but Vinyl on HBO. We spoke about this a lot. It came out of the gate, left a lot of people cold. I liked it because I was familiar with the Terrence Winter shorthand from Boardwalk Empire, so it felt that it was very familiar to me. I knew what he was doing. It could have been filled with a little bit too many Martin Scorsese-isms and cocaine head snaps. You know what I mean? But yeah, the fact that HBO renewed the show and then canceled it, kind of just pissed me off, and I was ready to write HBO off. So that was a disappointment to me, because I thought that, given this second season, that show could have kind of turned it around a little bit, and I think it probably would have been good. It
finished very strong. I'm sorry. Yeah, it finished very strong.
It really did.
Episodes are really great. I think it kind of meandered in the middle. It started off strong, it meandered, and then it finished off strong. I think they kind of lost an opportunity with Bobby Cannavale's character's wife. I thought they could have done more with her. She kind of disappeared and then she comes back, but they really didn't do enough with them. And I thought the cameos were interesting. I mean, I know, when you do a show like that, there's always the chance that, obviously you're watching the show and they're playing, someone's playing Robert Plant, someone's playing David Bowie, and it's not them. But if you suspend disbelief enough and you kind of get into the show, you could sort of forgive that. I thought they did the best they could, and it was an interesting story. I'm a big fan of Bobby Cannavale anyway. I think he's a really great actor, and I loved him when he was in Boardwalk Empire. It's a shame, that he got a starring role in this really, this show with great potential, and they had to go and cancel it after they renewed it.
I really do think that the show got a bum rap, and a lot of the critics, the high and mighty critics, I should say, it was really hip to hate vinyl for some reason. It was a brash show, and it was in your face. But the era was like that. The era was in your face, and the music was in your face. So, I don't know what a lot of these critics were expecting. And I do agree. I do think that the cameos were very interesting. The Alice Cooper cameo was really interesting. I do think that the show could have done so much more. So I'm really disappointed by that.
The Elvis cameo, I think that was my favorite.
Oh, yeah. The Elvis cameo was great.
Yeah, I thought they did a great job with that one.
Oh, that guy was great. That was Robert Patrick, I think. That was...
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just disgusted with HBO for doing that. Anything else come to mind? Any other disappointments?
None for me, but I know just an honorable mention for one that we're looking forward to. I think we both talked about this, The Bleeder, which is a film.
Yeah.
Chuck Wepner, with Liev Schreiber, that looks really good. They've only released like a scene; they haven't even released a trailer yet, with him and his wife as the characters, and it looks interesting. I mean, and there's someone gonna. I think the guy playing Sylvester Stallone in the film is from Boardwalk Empire. He played
Al Capone's brother.
Yeah, Al Capone's brother, the younger, who died.
Right.
I'm really looking forward to that. I think you're looking forward to it as well.
I'm really looking forward to it. I'm hoping that the fact that they didn't release it before Oscar contention season, I hope that doesn't mean that it's not as good as we hope it is.
Yeah, I know. I was hoping to, because I was looking for it, but I know that they haven't even released trailers or anything for it, so I don't know when they plan to release it. It's probably in the festival circuit somewhere. Sure. But it hasn't even gotten a limited release yet, so we'll have to wait and see when that comes out.
All right. So, Jack, what is your Twitter handle? Where can people find you?
You could find me at Jack Lugo 1.
Okay, Jack, I appreciate you hanging out with the Pop Culture Juke Joint this week, and I'm sure we'll see you again.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
All right.
Thanks, Anthony.
Talk to you later, Jack.
Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.